Alright, so the UFC put out their annual UK card, another fight night just like last year. Only this year sucks even more because, ladies and gentlemen, if you want some ranked fights, you're out of luck because we only have one. Actually, scratch that. The lid stays on the card. I think it was on last year's one too. But look, an international fight night card is pretty much just meant to show off the international talent. So I'm not going to pretend that like this card needs to be anything more than it is. However, I still want to talk about the good and the bad. For one, we have Luke Reily on the card, making a 4-month turnaround from his debut. This guy is popular, trains with Pimlet, so he's going to be a pretty big star. Undefeated, 12 wins, 9 by knockout. If he can capitalize, he'll be big. I genuinely think he's probably going to be better than Paddy Pimlet. But we'll see. Obviously, he's just made his debut. We're going to see where his star power will reach. But possibly being the co-main event, though, does surprise me because we have MMA royalty being overlooked here. Michael Venom Page is on this card, but you probably wouldn't have noticed because he's a third fight down and doesn't have a ranking next to his name. It's time for me to rant, boys. MVP went on a podcast to speak about how the UFC planned for him to be on this card a couple weeks or months back, only to say that they were struggling to find him an opponent and wanted to make it. And look, I wanted to make a video about it then, but now is a much better time because I think the UFC is low-key punishing MVP. Let me explain. So MVP started his UFC career at welterweight, beating Kevin Holland to get a ranking, but then losing to Ian Gary when trying to move up spots. So he stayed at 15. MVP then decided to go up to middleweight, purely just to fight Shara Bullet, as he knew that was a matchup that would suit him, but had no plans of staying there. So he just wanted to fight that one fight and then go back to welterweight. Except the UFC saw MVP beat a prospect of theirs up, he destroyed Shara Bullet, probably knew that welterweight was a lot stronger than middleweight in terms of names, and tried to keep MVP there to fight, which ended up resulting in MVP versus, it was Jared Cannonier, which ranked MVP the 10th spot at middleweight, whilst MVP was still publicly saying that he'd rather be at welterweight. So now he's back down here at welterweight, but he ain't ranked, and he's not even fighting a ranked opponent, meaning he went from being ranked 10th to this. And by the way, if you go to the official rankings, MVP is nowhere to be seen on middleweight anymore. So yeah, he's pretty much just back at square one. But even square one was a ranked fight. So this isn't. So in my opinion, this feels like punishment. And if I was MVP's team, I'd be pissed. They're fucking him over, to say the least. Still one of my favourite fighters to watch, and I'll be seated. But MVP isn't a young man. Why not give him some great matchups while he's still in our sport? I know it's not because these guys are... I know it's because, these guys... They say that these guys aren't available for MVP. Because some of the welterweights have been out for a while. But I don't see... Buckley hasn't fought since last June. That would be a great matchup. Colby hasn't fought in over a year. Rodriguez hasn't fought since July. There are matchups here near the bottom of the rankings for Page. But yeah, that's my rant over. I ain't happy about what they're doing to my boy. The main event, though, is quite good. I heard people complaining that this main event wasn't the most interesting. But honestly, the main event's probably the best part of this card. This is by far more interesting than Leon versus Brady. And that was last year's London main event. We have two undefeated guys. The winner will most likely face Volk for the title. So this is pretty much a number one contenders fight. Unless it's movsar and he puts an absolute stinker, which, let's face it, is a majority of his fights. I remember when I first watched Lerone, I thought the dude was a bit of a bore, so I kind of didn't like him, but after that last KO, he's winning me over, and I don't mind saying I think the bloke's a G. If you see his interviews, he seems like a downright chill guy that just wants his title shot. If there's one thing that will make you like someone more as well, it's giving them an opponent that you dislike even more. So I'm rooting for Lerone. Movsar had a very close fight with Aljo, winning off just purely being more active on the striking, like in the ground game, whereas Aljo was only really focused on grappling to progress position. Movsar did a really good job with wrist control, But overall, Lerone ain't Aljo. Lerone has a different skill set, and I think movsar's wrestling will work really well here. Josh Emmett took Lerone down. Pico took him down. I think movsar will too. And I think in order to avoid that, Lerone Murphy will need to push the pace on the front foot, which isn't his go-to move. So for now, I'm going movsar, but I hope to God that Lerone wins this instead. Let me know what you guys think of the card, the main event, and MVP's matchup. Like and subscribe as always. Toodaloo. I don't know what to say. Bye-bye.